mobilize for democracy in the future, if not now?
So, yeah, the public we're not convinced by our argument in 2024 because we were shilling for the existing version of democracy, which is deeply corrupt, which does not work. Trump is giving us this opportunity because this is the most corrupt White House in the history of the country. He's giving us an opportunity to run on an anti-corruption message, but we will only win if we actually run on an anti-corruption platform. And so for me, the two things that matter most are populist economics and government reform. If Democrats run on cleaning up Washington with real actual plans to, for instance, get private money completely out of politics, to pass the Stock Act, to make sure that not a single person inside government can use insider information to trade to benefit them financially, and we run on populist economics, I think that's a winner, and it's a way for people to stand up and support democracy, but only a reformed version of democracy.
You mentioned corruption, and we now have a situation where members of the Trump family earn tremendous fees from foreign governments. It seems to me that that's a form of colossal corruption, and it's not something we don't know about. It's published all the time, and then it falls into a black hole. Why?
Well, I think in part, Trump has been very effective in being so public about his corruption that it ends up with it being normalized. I'm just shocked that the Trump meme coin isn't like the only thing that we're talking about. It's probably the most massive corruption scandal in the history of the country. You literally have legal, open channel for private donations to the president and his family in exchange for favors. And we just kind of think that it's part of Trump's right to do business in the White House. It's gross. It's disgusting. It's deeply immoral. And, the fact that we didn't talk about that every hour of every day once he released that coin was, kind of a signal to the country that we weren't going to take the corruption seriously.
Senator Murphy, is Chuck Schumer the right leader for the Democratic Party in the Senate for this moment?
He can be. Listen, it's not easy to be leader of this party. There are a lot of diverse views inside the caucus, and I think the whole caucus has to make up their mind that we are going to start fighting, that we are going to not just do business as normal.
As you know, Chuck Schumer's argument about voting the way he did on the continuing resolution was that if you shut down the government, it gives the Trump administration carte blanche for an potentially boundless period of time to do whatever they like in terms of shutting down agencies. Not that they're not doing it to some degree now, and to a great degree, but that it would be open season. The opposing point of view was let them do it, let them own it, which seemed to Schumer a gamble that one couldn't take.
Listen, he has a compelling argument. It does feel odd for Democrats to protest Republicans shutting down the government by shutting down the government. And it is also true that the president would have extraordinary powers during a shutdown. I came to a different conclusion. I thought that the public would actually blame Republicans for the shutdown of government because they saw them shutting down the government. But it is true that voting no on the continuing resolution would have involved a big risk for Democrats. But we need to be engaged in risk-tolerant behavior right now, because ultimately the only way to save the democracy is for there to be a national public mobilization of not thousands, not tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of people when the 5-alarm fire happens. And if the public doesn't see us taking risks, tactical risks, daily risks, then they are not going to take what will be a risk on their part, standing up to a repressive regime where it's clear that the government is willing to make you pay a personal price if you exercise your voice.
What kind of risks should you and your colleagues be taking right now going forward?
So in the Senate, the minority has power. You cannot proceed to any legislation without the consent of the minority. Now, we have regularly been providing the votes to the Republican majority to move forward legislation that they care about, including the continuing resolution. We could choose not to do that. We could say to Republicans, unless you work with us on some targeted measures to prevent the destruction of our democracy, we are not going to continue to pretend like it's business as usual. We could make that decision as a party. Now, that would mean that occasionally Democrats would need to vote no on legislation that on the merits they may support. But if you think that democracy is the number one, number two, and number three story, then you have to act like it. And you need to show that you're willing to take a political risk, like voting against an otherwise popular bill, in order to increase and create leverage to try to save the democracy.
You mentioned the possibility of public involvement, public demonstrations, people out on the street. What would bring them there?
Well, there aren't daily political rallies happening in the country, but anytime you set one up, you're now seeing not thousands of people, but tens of thousands of people attend. You saw what happened with Bernie and AOC over the weekend.
I think they reached 30,000 at one of the rallies.
Well, and Senator Blumenthal, my colleague in Connecticut, was telling me he went to this tiny last-minute Tesla protest at a dealership in Milford, Connecticut, and there were 600 people that essentially shut down Route 1 in Connecticut. I mean, people are ready to mobilize. We just haven't been organized enough to give them those opportunities. And so this speaks to, the actual need of the Democratic Party right now. Okay, we have to be better in our tactics inside Washington, but we actually have to build a political infrastructure that can plug people in. And that's what we've been really terrible at doing over the years. The Republicans have a permanent political infrastructure, mobilizing, legal, messaging, intellectual. The Democrats have a very thin permanent infrastructure.
Why?
So Democrats, because we raise money primarily from smaller and medium-sized donors, we don't have money until about 6 months before the election. But there's a consultant class in the Democratic Party that until we break their grip on our party, we're going to continue to spend money badly.
Senator, you've been on TV a lot lately, to be frank. You've been out there quite a lot. Are you in the process of asserting yourself for national office?
No, and I actually think that to the extent my messaging has broken through a little bit more than others, I ascribe that to the fact that there is not actually a personal motive attached to it. I think sometimes, even if you're not saying it out loud, people can kind of tell when you're putting yourself out there for personal political gain.
So just to be clear, you don't want to run for president ever?
That job looks awful difficult to me. I just would, if I could go down in history as somebody that sort of helped save American democracy at its most significant instance of peril, that would be good enough for me.
Senator, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Chris Murphy has been the junior senator from Connecticut since 2013. I'm David Remnick, and I'll be back in a moment.